What's going on, everybody? This is Al from PlaybookGamer.com, and today we're going to do a scouting report on the North Carolina Tar Heels in NCAA Football 06. Now, the purpose of this video is to give you enough information about this team to give you enough motivation to maybe start a dynasty with them. We're going to look at their roster, we're going to look at their uniforms, their stadium. We're also going to go into Dynasty Mode and look at some information there, and hopefully by the end of the video, you have a clear understanding of what this team is all about. Now, I want to start off with the rosters. Now, as you see here, I am using the name roster file that I've been using forever and ever. I have a link in the description below if you need access to that file. And starting off, I want to mention their roster as a whole. For this particular roster file, we got 69 total players. Of course, in 06, you can max out at 70. And you got 19 seniors, 18 juniors, 20, then 12. So it's a little more upper class heavy than normal, so you just kind of need to keep that in mind. And we have the roster set by overall. Their best players is a halfback, a wide receiver, and a middle linebacker. Those are your three impact players. Kind of gives you something to think about. And you look at some of these other ones, we don't have anybody in the 90s. Our best guy's 87 overall, and that kind of gives you an idea of kind of where you're at with that. But you got a handful of dudes in the 80s and below. But what we want to do is look at each position. Let's start off with quarterback. Now, in 2005, they ran a pro-style offense. So kind of keep that in mind as you look throughout the rest of this offensive roster. Their quarterbacks, their best dudes, an 80 overall, and it's a drop-off after that. He's a pocket passer. As you can see, he's got 62 speed, his backup 62 speed. But he got a couple other guys that can run the ball a little bit. So if you're going to pick North Carolina, you don't have to go pro style. You can go straight option. You can kind of do whatever you want to, regardless of which team you pick. But at least you got some options for both types of broad schemes, if that makes sense. You go over here to their arms, their throw power and accuracy. All these guys are like in the mid-80s in the throw power. And their throw accuracy, the two pocket passers, as you would imagine, are pretty good on that front. And the two scramblers, not so much. But at least you got something here to work with. You look at their halfbacks. Arguably your best player on the team is your impact halfback and Ronnie McGill. 87 overall, 90 speed. You're probably going to build your offense around him at least that first season, if not the second season. He's just a junior. He may come back that senior year, and you've got 2 years out of him, which would be great. Then it's a bit of a drop-off with 82 overall, then 78 and 78. At least you got some dudes that you may want to redshirt. So, I mean, it's a decent little group here, and I like the mix. A freshman, a couple sophomores, and a junior. Nice balance there. You look at fullback. Again, initially, they're a pro-style offense, so they're going to have some fullbacks in here. A couple of freshmen and a senior. Your best guy's an 82 overall. Not fast at all. He's a pure blocker. But you can make do with that. But if you need some speed, you have some of that in this kid right here. A true freshman, 76 overall, 78 speed. That's really good. And if they can catch at least a little bit, they kind of... That's not the best in the world, but, I mean, you can still make do with that. So not a bad little group, depending on what you're kind of do offensively. Wide receiver, an okay group. Your best guy's an 86 overall. Impact guy, Jesse Hawley. He's a junior. Then you got a senior that's an 86 as well. Then you got a drop-off, 80, 80, 78. You can run pretty much whatever offense you want to with this unit, depending on if you want a bunch of them out there, if you only need a couple. I think you're going to be fine. Notice the speed. We got some burners, 96, 95, 90, 91. That's not bad. I would take advantage of those if I was you, especially a couple of these guys right here, like this redshirt senior, 96 speed. Get what you can out of him before he leaves after that first season. You look at their tight ends. You got 3 of them. Your best guy's a 78 overall. At least the distribution is good. They got a freshman, a junior, and a senior and such. None of these guys are very fast. Can any of them catch? It's not bad. 74, 72. Just kind of depending on what you want to do with your tight ends. You look at their tackles, 82 and an 80. These are your 2 starters. Then it's a bad drop-off after that. You're going to really prioritize your tackle position once you head into recruiting that first season. You look at their guards, kind of the same thing. You got 2 decent guys, and it's a drop-off after them. But at least you have a senior there, and I like the spread of freshmen, 3 sophomore, and a couple of seniors. You look at their centers. You got 3. You got 1 good one, a decent one, an 80 overall, but he's a senior. Once he's gone, you better start recruiting some backups or guys who can come in and help right away that next season. You better hope this guy doesn't get hurt. Defensive ends, I'm pretty sure they ran a 4.3 in 2005 and in this game. So you have an 84. This guy's really big, 6'4", 270. He's your go-to there. There's a little bit of a drop-off after that. It's 78, and it's getting worse and worse, as you can see here. You got a little bit of speed with these guys, which ain't bad, depending if you're going to go 3.4, a 4.3 or not. But these guys are big enough. You may want to go 3.4 if that's your thing. But there's good distribution as well. A couple of sophomores, some juniors, and a senior and such. Defense tackle, you got plenty of bodies, but not a ton of good ones. You got one decent one, an 85 overall. But he's a senior. Then it's a bad drop-off after that. So you're going to be recruiting this position pretty hard out of the gate, I would imagine. You look at their outside linebackers, a lot of bodies. You got a couple seniors, some juniors, a sophomore and such. 280 overall, you'll probably start these guys unless you want to start this guy with in the mix there. So you got a decent little group there. You just need to get better players down the road, obviously, because as you can tell, an 80 overall senior, which is fine. You'd like to have like a 99 overall senior. Middle linebacker, arguably your best defensive player. And this kid right here, Doug Justice, he's a senior. And once he's gone, you better have some dudes behind him ready for the second season. As you can tell, you got nothing behind him, to say the least. Corner, not a very good position here. Just a 78 overall, then a 74 and a 70. None of these guys are very tall either. This is going to be a priority for you in recruiting. Free safety, kind of the same thing, just a 78 overall. Then it's a bit of a drop-off after that. You got plenty of bodies. I don't think you need 4 free safeties. And the distribution all is kind of decent. But still, just not a whole lot to work with there. And this is even worse, your strong safety position. You only got 2, and your best one's a 72 overall. This is your weakest position on defense. This will be a high recruiting priority for you out of the gate. You do have a really good kicker, and he's just a sophomore, 84 overall. He's going to be very helpful for you for at least 2 to 3 seasons. So that's going to be very nice to have. And you got a punter that's a junior, 84 overall. So at least your special team should be okay. And if you remember those wide receivers we talked about that has some speed to them, your kick return, your punt return game should be pretty strong as well. So that's the roster. You have an idea kind of what they have. Now let's look at the visuals of the team. Let's go over to Play Now. And I want to look at their uniforms. Now this is the default uniforms that the PS2, your Xbox guys will see. And your default home looks pretty nice. Everybody likes the powder blue look. I do too. And I'm not a North Carolina fan, but that does look pretty slick. You look at their default away uniform. You got all white with the blue helmet. Not bad there. And I'm pretty confident that they got names on the back of their jersey. You got the all blue look. That looks really slick. And you got to remember, North Carolina doesn't have much tradition. So you can swap these in and out all the time and not feel like you're breaking or hurting anybody's feelings by doing some alternate options. Then you got the blue pants with the white. This is your alternate away uniform. Now what you can do is, if you have the Next Mod, if you play on the emulator like I do, you can go over and use the texture pack. And we're going to look at that right here. And this is the texture pack for that as of now, as of June 3rd or 4th, whatever the day is. This is their home uniform, the all blue look. You tell it's just really slick. Good job, whoever worked on those. You can even see the Jordan logo on the pants and the jersey. The away, everything pops a little bit more. You got the little diamonds on the side of the pants and such. That looks really neat. Then you go over to their darker blue alternate home uniform. Really slick there. Then you have the alternate 2. This is your away alternate with the white jersey. Really slick there. Now what we can do is go to their stadium and see what that looks like. And really neat stadium. I've always liked it. As you can see here, I think it holds, we can go back and look at it. It wasn't paying attention. I think it's like 60,000 or so. Really slick stadium. I've always liked it. Nice little horseshoe look. I know they've done some new things. I think that end zone, they've updated it since, 2005. I think they got a full end zone with like another 10,000 or so. I could be wrong, but you go back and look here. Yes, exactly 60,000 for their stadium. So that's not a bad look. Now, the next thing I want to look at is the rivals. This is kind of helpful for recruiting and such. Now, we can go over to North Carolina here, and Duke obviously is their arch rival. It's the battle for the victory bell. They're in your conference, of course. They're in your division. Then you got Wake Forest as a rival, and then you have NC State as a rival. So whenever it comes to in-season recruiting and such, I think it'll help you out if you have a couple guys visit a couple of those games. I think it'll boost, give you a better chance to get those guys to commit if you can do so. But that's not a deal breaker or anything. But I at least wanted to point out the rivals. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to go over to Dynasty Mode. And we're going to select North Carolina, of course. And we're going to look at some things here. And hopefully you'll get enough information out of this on the Dynasty side of things. So what we're going to do, we're going to select that. We're going to go begin Dynasty. And what we're going to look at, we're going to look at the coach, the playbook, the magazine, and we're going to look at some recruiting stuff. So once you start your Dynasty, I want to go to coach options first. And by default, this is what is set up. This is John Bunting, for those of you who are not familiar with North Carolina football history. He didn't do very much in North Carolina. He was basically a bust, just didn't work out. I think he got fired the season after this one. But as you can see here, by default, they are a balanced offense, a 4-3 defense. But again, you can change this to however you wish, and you can look at some of the sim stuff. Now, some of this information could be useful for you if you were scouting North Carolina as an opponent. This is kind of what to expect. They're going to be a balanced offense and such. You look at their defense, they tend to favor defending the pass a little bit more than run, things like that. Now, I want to go over to the report card, and this is what you can expect out of the gate in terms of your contract and such. Out of the gate, they want you to beat Duke and Miami. Contract info is very simple. Just win as many games as you can. All this will be taken care of. All right. Now, since we talked about the coach, let's talk about the playbook. Let's go over to playbooks. And this is the default North Carolina playbook. Now, this could be useful for you in two ways. One, you can use this playbook. We can look at ace twins, ace bunch. You got a 12 personnel set and a 10 personnel set, 10 meaning one halfback and no tight ends, so a 4 wide set more or less. Then you got I normal, I twins. Then you got shotgun normal and wide trips and 5 wide, strong normal and weak slot. That is as much of a pro style looking playbook as I've ever seen. A little bit of ace, a little bit of I, a little bit of gun, a little bit of strong, a little bit of weak. If you like all those various looks and you still want to stick with a pro style offense, hey, just go ahead and use this playbook. There are plenty of great plays in these formations that you can get a solid offense out of it. And there's plenty of option in here. You can stick with this and you can still run a basic option if you want to go that route. But of course, you could run whatever offense you want with this team. So we're going to back out of here. The next thing I want to look at is the magazine, just kind of give you a preview of kind of where you're starting at in your dynasty. Let's go to preseason polls. Here's the preseason 119. As we would all expect, North Carolina isn't very good in this game. So we're going to go and resort this by least to best, and they are 70th in the country starting out. A B- overall, offense is B-, C+ on defense. And our special teams is excellent, as we've already seen. We got 2 really good kickers. Our special team return is going to be really good as well. So that's going to be a strength for you out of the gate. Next thing we're going to look at is Heisman Watch. You're not going to have anybody starting out here, but a good goal to have, like with any season, is to have some killer dudes on offense, and if you're really lucky, somebody on defense who can make this list somewhere down the road. Next up, we're going to look at Preseason All-Americans. There's not a whole lot here on the North Carolina front. This is your first team All-Americans, and we don't have anybody on this list. You look at the second team All-American list, and I'm going to just quickly show you, we don't have any North Carolina guys on there. But what we can do is go to the all-conference preseason list, and we don't have any first-teamers there, so you got a lot of work to do. Second team, I think we have one, and that is our kicker. So a nice goal to have is to have as many all-conference and all-American guys as you can by the end of the season. Preseason, you got one. Hopefully by the end of that first season, you can have 6 or 7 or whatever. Then you go to Conference Outlook. this is where they have us initially. This is the conference as a whole, 10th out of 12. So just not all that great, but at least you got something to work towards. Try to get up here consistently. You go over to the division. They got us 5th in the division, right ahead of Duke, our main rival. And like I said earlier, with our other rivals, we got Wake Forest and NC State in the other division. So hopefully you'll play them a little more often. I don't know which one is their consistent yearly rival that's on the schedule, but you can check that out a little bit later if you're interested in running with North Carolina. Next thing is toughest places to play. We've already looked at our stadium. Now, our stadium is not on this list initially. It takes some effort to get your stadium on this list. It's very simple. Just win as many home games as possible, and maybe you'll get lucky and you'll see their stadium here on this list over time, if you're interested in that. The last thing I want to talk about is recruiting and kind of what to expect. Now, we've looked at our roster. We kind of have an idea of which positions are of need, but you can go over to the team overview and it shows you some important things here. Starting off, I want you to pay attention to this number down here, 50. If you don't redshirt anybody, expect to have 50 at the most come back next season, which means if you do a little math, 70 minus 50 gives you 20. So you got 20 spots to fill if you don't want to cut players and try to over recruit and such. Now, you also notice middle linebacker is a desperate need. Like, you got to go get somebody. And we already saw that before. We only got one really good one, and he's a senior. Then you got strong safety. That's obvious. We definitely need some bodies there. But we also paid attention in the roster section of the video how we had some help needed at guard. Center was a bad situation for us. Corner, I felt like wasn't all that great. Free safety wasn't all that great. I think overall we have a pretty good idea that we need help across the board because we don't even have anybody in the 90s. The last thing I want to talk about are pipelines. Now, think about your geography, the map of the U.S. North Carolina is on the coast, Atlantic coast, and then you go over to each state here, and let's just look at their initial pipelines. The Atlantic Ocean, here we are. Florida is a pipeline. I suggest you keep it as such. North Carolina is very close to Florida. Only South Carolina is between you and the Sunshine State. And as you can tell, this is a very small bar. You got a lot of players to choose from, and it always will be that way with the state of Florida. So you're close enough to it. It's not going to be super expensive on the recruiting front to recruit Florida kids, and thankfully it is already a pipeline. So let's keep going, see what other pipelines we have. We should have about 4 or so. That's pretty typical for most of these teams. The next one should be more than likely our pipeline, our own state. Yes, North Carolina. Now, thankfully, North Carolina is a decent state to recruit from. As you see, that bar is not super long. You got plenty of dudes to choose from here, so you kind of expect the same once you head into the off season. So be able to recruit in-state guys should not be a problem for you. Let's go on. Find some other pipelines. Next one is South Carolina, which makes sense. They're right below us. Now, they don't have as much talent as North Carolina will, so kind of keep that in mind. But since it's so close, you might as well just keep it as a pipeline. Next up, we have, and that may be it. No, we have Virginia. Now, Virginia is another decent pipeline. Plenty of bodies here. It's not going to be as much as like Florida or Texas or California, but it's right up above us. So we keep on going, and I think that is all of the pipelines. And it looks like that it is. So we got our home state, North Carolina. We got Virginia. We got South Carolina. We got Florida. You don't have to go beyond that, honestly, and I think you can recruit just fine. You may want to go, maybe look at Georgia, maybe Tennessee, if you feel the need to go beyond these initial 4 states. But I think you're going to be good there. All right, that's it for me. Hopefully you got enough out of this to give you enough information about North Carolina, what they have, what to expect your first season. And hopefully this will give you enough motivation to run a dynasty with them. I think you'll have a lot of fun with it. All right, guys. I'll talk to you later.